Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to SafeDefend Live. I am Dave Evans with the great Doc Vecchi. Unfortunately, we had an incident yesterday that we're going to talk about at length, the school shooting in Georgia. 4 lives lost, number of people injured. It's really sad. I just feel for the families and all the people involved having to deal with this and the kids that had to live that traumatic event. But Doc, let's talk about the things you see and the reality of that this individual wasn't unknown to the police or the FBI.
Right. There's evidence to suggest that, in the past, there's been a number of reports, but, like maybe a year ago or more, regardless, this kid has been on somebody's radar, right? At least a little bit. And sounds like they maybe did some sort of investigation and just basically couldn't establish it, couldn't, and then basically just let it go, right? And I think that, that's a lot what happens is that you'll get a concerning kid, and then you look into it. It looks like they looked into it. I think he was interviewed, and he was on the radar there for a while, and then for whatever reason, he went off the radar. And that's typically what happens is they'll do a little investigation. There's no crime. And then they basically resolve it, and then they leave it alone, and then everybody forgets about it, right? It's one of those things. When you're looking at this case, I mean, 2 things jump out at me. Number one is that, the stats or the things that we know about these offenders, especially school offenders, is that about 91% of the time, and that's based on, historical data, of course, but about 91% of the time, we see these offenders as being current or former students.
Yep.
Okay. And when you're dealing with a juvenile, right, almost all of these offenders had engaged in some sort of what we call leakage, right? Giving some sort of an indication to someone. And it might be through social media, it might be someone overhearing him, or maybe a direct communication with someone that he was intending to do what he did, or it was maybe more veiled, right? And maybe not as clear, right? But clearly it was concerning, right? And there's evidence that is out there, right? There's stuff that's out there right now on the social media that he may have said this about shooting up a school. The word is out there is that he himself made some phone calls before it happened. He threatened other schools. And then there was a lot of stuff that's starting to come out with the home environment that we still don't have quite a good handle on, right, as far as what was going on there. And, kind of interesting that his father was charged just recently, I think yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah, as with I think involuntary manslaughter, and essentially associated with the killings for getting access to the guns for the offender and things like that. And it's kind of saddens me because it's like, it's just like, we've been to this movie before, right? And it's like, it's like every time it's like, oh, well, he just, didn't expect this, and it's tragic. And, what do we do about it? And things like this. Well, the thing you do about it, right, is have some sort of a threat assessment and reporting system in place, right? You got to have that in order to prevent or at least mitigate some of these situations. This is another clear example of, you had a kid who is clearly troubled or concerning, whatever that means. It was troubled enough that he was engaged with law enforcement a while back. But like law enforcement does, they're going to do their investigation. And if there's not evidence to support a crime, it's going to be considered resolved and closed. And then no one picks that up, right? No one picks that up to just kind of keep him on the radar. And it's not really law enforcement's job to do that. They can't really do that. The best people to do that are the people that have contact and engagement with that potential offender every single day. And in this case, he's in a school. It's a perfect environment to stay connected with that kid and to monitor that kid. But you've got to have people who are trained and understand the concept that this stuff doesn't just happen. It's not a snap effect. No one wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to go shoot up the place and grab an AK or a AR rifle and run into the school and start killing people. Okay, people say it's senseless. It's not senseless. It makes perfect sense from their perspective. And so if we're thinking about, oh, it's about the gun, it's about, oh, is he mentally ill? This is senseless violence. He just snapped. That eliminates your ability to prevent this because, first of all, none of that's true, right? And what you got to be able to do is know that this stuff can be prevented. You got to have that preventive, proactive mindset and instill a structure and a process. And if you don't do that, and you keep this response mindset that we're just going to click a button, right? That's all we need. It's too late. And people already are dead by the time you click the button. And so we've got to have a real serious conversation and get out of this response mindset and get to a proactive preventive mindset based on an understanding of these offenders and an understanding of almost always how they behave. And the first thing is that with kids, okay, a school shooter, so if you're preparing or trying to assess or put your team together, what are your probabilities? Well, first of all, the probability is it's going to be a kid. It's going to be a current or former student. Second probability is that they're going to leak their intentions, right? They're going to do it on social media. They're going to let it out there. Anything that happens that's concerning needs to be addressed immediately because there's no snap effect. This kid is going to go for a period of time. And here's what happened here. Now, we don't know the motivation, but I'm willing to place a bet that the motivation is going to be some sort of grievance that the kid had. I don't know what that is. Okay. I don't know if it's ideology. I don't know if it's he felt wronged, he felt isolated, maybe he felt persecuted or bullied. Maybe it was a significant loss in his life, something that drove him to decide that violence was going to be the answer, right? And we don't know who the targets are. Was it the school in general? Was it a specific people, right? That's important to look at, right? And then his research and planning, he obviously was looking at previous attacks and things like this, right? Yep. So that's indicator, and that is a thing that kids do. Columbine is going to be the number one thing that kids look at for motivation and inspiration and just tactics, right? And those changes in behavior, even at home, there was changes. Sure, his dad gives him access to the guns, but there certainly were changes where he finally decided to take that gun to school and whatever he went through in terms of his preparation, right? And all this other stuff, right? And so this stuff doesn't just happen. There are specific things that you need to look for, and you don't want to go down rabbit holes in areas that aren't related directly to what we call the pathway behaviors. Okay, mental illness and guns certainly enhance the problem, but they're not the cause of the problem. And to think that this just happens in a snap situation eliminates our ability to prevent. And really, the bottom line is number one, you got to connect the dots. But even before that, you have to have the right dots to connect in the first place. And this is something this is something that is, it's not rocket science. It can be difficult to do, but there is a structure and process that we here at SafeDefend happy to have a discussion with schools. We have lots of customers, right, that have our system for response, and we have very little customers who want to talk about threat assessment. And again, it's that response mindset that everyone has. You certainly have got to be prepared because we can't stop or prevent these things all the time, but we can do a hell of a lot better if we just have that preventive, proactive mindset, have a process that works in place, and the training, and just to have a little bit of understanding of how these offenders behave, and we can be light years ahead of where we are. It's just very frustrating. And so this is something for the parents. Parents should not just be asking, what happens if there's a shooting at the school? What are you going to do to keep my kids safe? What I want to ask as a parent is, what are you doing to prevent it from happening in the first place? How are you dealing with potential concerning students and concerning behaviors? What are you doing in terms of mitigating this? Okay. And when they say, well, we have perimeter fencing out there and we have metal detectors at our schools and we're doing all this thing, and inform parents to say, you know what, you're planning for the wrong thing. That's 9% of the problem. 91% of the problem is already inside your school. And what are you doing about that? And so these are just some of the things that come to mind on this. Now, we're very early in the investigation, don't really know, but as it unfolds, it's probably going to be the same story, just different people, unfortunately, and it's absolutely tragic.
Well, Doc, they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We keep hearing the same sound bites from our politicians. We keep hearing the same thing from everybody. Oh my God, I can't believe this happened in the community. We keep hearing the same senseless things from people after the event occurred. I think the mindset shift has to be continuous threat assessment, right? Continual identification of people that are on the path of violence and intervention before they get to that point where they take action. It's insane to me. It's insane to me that we have people on a pulpit hollering about this and that, and they taking no proactive steps to train our teachers, to train our administrators, to get them where they need to be to help these kids. I mean, Wander, Georgia is 19,000 people. Not much bigger than the little community I'm sitting in right now. We know everybody here, right? Everybody knows who is struggling, who's having tough family issues. It's not unknown in the community. My bet is that wonderful people in that community, they knew there was an issue before it happened and nobody said anything.
Right.
Nobody said anything. And nobody took the approach to say, hey man, I know you're struggling. What's going on? Are you okay?
Yeah. Yeah, and you're exactly right, and that's one of the basic things. When someone is in the early stages of planning an attack, right, where they feel, I mean, this is what's really sad, is that these kids that carry out these crimes feel that this is the only answer.
Absolutely.
That's what's sad, right? And who was there to just identify the kid as having a problem, having a crisis, right? And sitting down with that kid and helping them through the crisis instead of ignoring it or letting someone else report it. Here's the bottom line. If you see concerning behavior, okay, of someone that don't question it, okay? Report it. And hopefully report it to someone who has knowledge and training in threat assessment so they can put those are the dots that you want to collect from the people that know the kid. Now, they may just see one thing that's kind of odd, right? But that needs to be reported, because if 10 people report one thing that's kind of odd, that's going to build the case and put that kid on the radar and allow us to step in to deal with that kid who's in crisis and to try to deal with that problem, or and try some sort of preventive measure early instead of ignoring it or judging it, or saying, I don't want to get involved, or it's probably nothing, I don't want to look dumb, all that stuff, right? Report it, don't judge it.
The thing that frustrates me about this, Doc, and it's the same song and dance, like I said before, is that after the fact, we look back and we see all these things, all these indicators that there was a problem. Hey, folks, if you see a problem, you need to tell somebody about it. Don't just sit on your hands. If you knew the kid was having issues, the young man was having issues, you need to get him some help. You need to talk to somebody. That's what people do that care about their community and want them to grow. Look, I know it's not easy. I know we love our privacy, and I respect that. But we have an obligation to our kids to make sure they're in the safest environment possible. And the way to build that environment is to be continually looking at the threat and what potential opportunities are there and stop them before they happen. Intervene in the appropriate way before they happen. And until we change our mindset and shift to the left side of this and talk about prevention as opposed to response, don't expect anything to change in this country. You can ban guns, you can do everything you want, but until you have a prevention mindset and you get experts in there that can teach you about threat assessment and how to prevent these incidents, you should expect nothing less than a catastrophic event in your school. That's just my opinion.
Well, I think you're 100% right, because that's exactly what's happening.
It is, and it's a shame, and unfortunately, 4 people lost their lives. My prayers are out to their family and their friends that they can heal, and for all the young people that witnessed this and went through this, my prayers are with you as well, because it's horrible. It is absolutely horrible. Young children should not be put in this environment. It is not fair to them.
Yeah, yeah. Schools should be safe.
They should be safe.
Be the last place that you would be in danger.
It should be a safe place for you to learn and educate and grow with your friends and have great experiences. So, I mean, I apologize. My sincere apologies and thoughts and prayers out to the people of Georgia, Apalachee High School that went through this yesterday. God bless you. Know that the family at SafeDefend and team are all praying for you and hope for your healing. Sorry I got a little emotional today, Doc, but this is just, as a combat vet, I don't want my kids in that environment. It's not the place to be. School should not be an environment where kids are at risk.
No, you're absolutely 100%. Yeah.
So with that, folks, Doc and Dave will be more exciting next time. We are out of here.
Have a great weekend.